Hello guys, welcome again for another standard deck tech with Phyrexia LB1. And this list that we are featuring today is a user submitted deck list for MTG Goldfish, and it uses with the typical red-green aggro, but is using basically the new OL counter mechanic from Phyrexia LB1. So we call this one as a oily or oil Gruul Aggro. Still has errors here because of cards in red are still not basically legal to play in standard, but we're going to dissect today's build. And the initial list was somewhat modified by my own preference, because I think those cards that aren't really needed to be more than one copy in the deck would be replaced by more of the efficient options in this deck setup. So we have 28 creatures, 9 instants, and 20 lands in this build. So we're going to start first with the 8 1-drops in the deck, which really going to be quite a very aggro deck in this build. We have 4 copies of Evolving Adaptive and Exuberant Fusling. So this one looks to be like the version of Experiment 1, if you're familiar with that one, or the Pelt Collector from Guild Ravnica. It enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it, so basically becomes 1/1 for each oil counter added. And then whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if the creature has greater power or toughness than the Evolving Adaptive, it will put an oil counter on this one. So basically it becomes 2/2, it becomes 3/3 if the next creature that you cast goes with either the higher or greater power or toughness than this creature. So it comes with very quite a tricky setup, because you would have several 1-drops that you could be able to trigger these ATB effects, or just go curving with the first turn adaptive, second turn beast color, the third turn creature, so on and so forth. So with this build, we also added in this list the 4 copies of the Fusling. So we read this uncommon card. This is a Phyrexian Goblin Warrior with a trample ability, wherein it gets +1/+0 for each oil counter on it. When a Fusling enters the battlefield, or whenever a creature or artifact control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on it. So basically, it becomes a 1 to cast 1/1 trampler for the first turn, but whenever those of these triggers that another creature or artifact control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, it gets another of those oil counters. So there are also other ways that you can put counters on your creature, which we're going to discuss in a bit. But we're gonna go for our next 2-drop here in the deck with 2 copies of Feldon Pronom Excavator. So this one is already a good sign for the creature choice of the 2 drops for mono red and red based red-green decks. And it does also provide you with card advantage whenever this dealt damage. We will exile many cards from the top of your library, and then choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. So also a good 2-drop and hasty in the setup. Then we also have a single copy of Hajar, Loyal Bodyguard. This is to cast 3/3, but the purpose here is that having this one on your turn 2 gets to pump up your Evolving Adaptive creature or your 1-drop. So it also has a function to have this sacrifice or legendary creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains indestructible on the end of turn. So another option also to protect your other creatures on this build. Also next is probably the default 4 obs 2-drop for red-green decks is Cure Beast Scholar, wherein whenever you cast a creature spell, it gets +1% counters, and then it can also be able to transfer its counters among any number of target creatures you control, depending on the number of counters that was added to it. So basically, this is a very good 2-drop to follow up with your several 1-drops in the deck. And also consider that as Firebrand, because of not only triggering the Evolving Adaptive power, because of its 3 power in this creature, but also it provides you with free cannot block effects, that whenever it attacks target creature, defending player controls with power less than the Firebrand's power can block this turn. So basically, making sure that your little 1/1s or X1 creatures can be chump blocked by your opponent's random blockers or random 1/1s, and that will act as blockers in the setup. Then we have 4 copies. This is another new card from Phyrexia LB1, Bloated Contaminator. This is a 3 to cast, 4/4 for trample, with Toxic one. That means players dealt damage by this creature also gets a poison counter. So whenever Bloated Contaminator deals combat damage to a player, preferate, that means you may choose to any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind of that was already there. So basically, it gives very effective because of the trample effects. It is also a good power with the 4/4, wherein you can preparate cards like that counter from Kyurem Scholar, those added oil counters on Fuseling, or also on Evolving Adaptive. You can also have those effects that can get proliferated and basically pumping up your team for this huge attack also on the next turn. So to make sure that we can be efficient on the third drop, we have added a playset of this card in the deck. And also we consider Miglus Maze Crusher. This is one of the red-green. This is basically in the theme of the oil counters. Enters the battlefield with 5 oil counters on it. It is also a 4/4/4/3. But you have also several options here wherein you can remove a oil counter on it or pay 1. It gains vigilance in midnight until the end of turn. You will pay 2 colorless or generic. Remove 2 oil counters from Miglus. It gets +2 until the end of turn. Pay 3, remove 3 oil counters, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So this is also a good way to have a strong powered creature in your field, but also acting as a utility creature in dealing with destroying artifact or enchantments, and also become a vigilance and menace attacker in function that this would also avoid being blocked or group blocked by any of your opponent's creatures. And also added here is the very suitable or kind of a generic 4-drop for any red-green modified deck is also Tangerine Raiju, wherein you can also put counters on other creatures you control, and then modified creatures you control will deal damage other than Tangerine Raiju. So that means that any other creature that was added with counters or any OL counters are considered as modified creatures, so it will also boost up Tangerine Raiju's damage effects whenever it attacks or its combat. And for our spells, we have considered 9. Aside from these Pump Spells and Kami's Flare and Lightning Strike, we have added this new card, Free from Flesh. This is just one to cast semi-giant growth effect, but the purpose here is not only to pump up your creatures, but also put 2 summon counters on it. This goes to benefit with your 8 1-drops. You can pump this one to have +2/+2 and gets 2 oil counters. So this basically becomes 1 to cast, get the Evolving Adaptive, becomes a 5/5 creature. That is if you have already have this one as a starter for 1. Then how much more if you will be able to go with this trigger effects as each of the oil counters was added to the creature. So imagine how big is that kind of damage given to those your opponent would really take out of just these 2 cards, 2-card combination. And for last instant card I've added for this list is Tiber Stand, which also not only acts as a new version of Tamiyo's Safekeeping, but also get you to pump your creatures for its extra lands or extra mana that you have given that setup. So in any case, late game effects will basically have your Tiber Stand get you 2 extra damage and basically win out of nowhere, and also making use of your extra lands in this deck. So target creature gets +6/+6 on the end of turn, and hexproof and indestructible. So it's basically a very good card out of this instant. So but we only considered 1 since it would be efficient to be used in the late game, hence the pump effect would also be very effective. So for the land setup, we just basically go with the basics of Mana Fix with the new land Copperline Gorge. We have also considered Corpuscant Forest. The life damage would not really matter here as long as we are going to go consistent with our 1-drops and 2-drops. And along with the basics, we have also added 1 copy of Busiju and Sokensan. But the new card here again is this one, 3 copies of Monumental Facade. It enters the battlefield with 2 oil counters on it. Then you can also basically add a colorless or pay, tap this land, remove an oil counter from it. You will put an oil counter on target artifact or creature you control. So not only giving you an option to have oils added to your creatures that benefit from it, but also this goes to be a good source in some of the situations where you will need to add oil counters to be able to benefit from the creature's ability of doing so. And last but not the least, we have the average mana value is 2. You can basically tune up a deck by just having 3 mana or 2 mana on your starting hand with this average mana value. Color distribution, we have 17 green and 28 red, but our red and green producers are basically even with 16 of count of each color. And last but not the least, only the extra spirit token, but I think we would need some dice in putting up these plus and counters and also the oil counters, such that you would need to distinguish those counters added aside from the dice that will be needed for your plus and counters for the Beast Scholar and also for Thundering Raiju. So that's basically about it for red green aggro oil aggro Gruul deck for standard. If you like this video, just make sure that like and subscribe and notifications on for more of these deck techs. And if you're able to have an early access or maybe have this deck legal by the next week on MTG Arena or MTG Online, you can comment here below your reference or what other changes you have made, and also some deck advices that you would consider on this deck that you have to add or to have this further improve in our deck builds. So that's basically about it, guys. Thank you for checking this video and see you on the next one.